The fuck going on with y'all, man? And welcome to the Season 1 Rogue Starter build, Twisting Blades, baby. First, I want to say that this video will not be as, crafty as my videos normally are. And that's pretty much because it's July 19th. Tomorrow is July 20th, which is when Season 1 of Diablo 4 gets released. So I have to kind of pump out these starter builds as fast as possible, and the videos that I normally make take a little long to make. So so the quality will be reduced for these starter builds, but the quantity, the content, the skills, the paragon, anything that you need to know for these starter builds will still be for you to watch. You know what I mean? And for each of these builds, I will probably have a starter build, which is the leveling portion, levels 1 to 50. Then the mid game after you hit level 50, and then you reach world tier 3. And then the end game, where you might have some uniques that you found, and hit world tier 4. And when your character is absolutely, bonkers, right? So I'll be going through each of them nice and quick. And again, anything that I say will be linked down below in the description. All these builds, I use d4builds.gg. Seems like a pretty damn good build calculating website to build your builds. You can have your gears, your aspects, your skill tree, your paragon. It even shows your stats, and I even added some notes on each page. So we'll go through it pretty quickly, but if you miss anything, or if I miss anything, you can just go to the links down below in the description. All right, and I'll be doing this for each class. All right. So let's get it started. So obviously, everyone, if you've played Diablo 4 long enough, you know that the best rogue build is Twisting Blades. It just is. End game, middle game, early game. It's just super strong, right? It's super strong because it does a lot of damage. It has decent AoE. But it also shines where a lot of builds don't, and that's killing bosses because of our specialization, Inner Sight. Inner Sight has a little purple icon that shows above monsters, and because bosses are the only monsters in that area, you'll pretty much have unlimited mana for boss fights, and that's pretty big for leveling and just throughout the whole game. So yeah, Twisting Blades is probably the best leveling build I say right now in the game, which is why I'm releasing it first. But don't worry, I'll be releasing all classes. But yeah, so while you're leveling through Twisting Blades, these are the aspects that I would focus on getting. You get these 3 aspects, it'll make your leveling process go even smoother. Blade Dancers is obviously the Twisting Blades. Let me go ahead and go closer so you guys can see. Yeah, Twisting Blades, Blade Dancers aspect is the one catered towards Twisting Blades builds, and I would get this as soon as you can from levels 1 to 15 very early, because once you get this, it kind of increases your quality of life a lot, because once you get this, you don't have to fucking zip dash dippity doodah all around the map. You can just stay in one spot, the blades will AoE around you, and yeah, it adds a lot of quality of life. And then of course you want some aspects that give you some energy regeneration, because energy generation or resource generation in general is pretty hard to come across while leveling and even in the mid game. So having something like this, Ravenous Aspect, and because our enemies will be vulnerable all the time pretty much from puncture, you know what I mean? Having Ravenous Aspect will help a lot for energy generation. And then of course Edge Masters is pretty much go-to for every every class that has a high hitting core move, so add Edge Masters. And it works really well with Inner Sight, because with Inner Sight, again, you're pretty much always at full energy while against bosses. So Edge Masters will add a nice bit of increased damage when doing that. So and again, normally, so if you guys don't know Season 1, the mechanic of Season 1 is you'll be killing malignant monsters, different monsters, and you'll be getting caged hearts, which can be socketed in your jewelry. And normally you would want to socket things like skulls in your jewelry to give more armor. But this season, for the first season of Diablo 4, you want to socket in these caged hearts. Now, obviously, none of these have been tested, or at least I haven't been testing them, because I don't have access to that kind of beta server or whatever, but you can use these. And I just picked the ones that gave resource generation and looked like they were the strongest ones related to that. So yeah, but these aren't like the end all be all. If you find a better K chart that you feel is better for you, feel free to use that. Again, I just used the ones that I felt were towards resource generation, which is super important while leveling. All right. And let's just quickly go over the main skills that we'll be using. So we're using Poison Trap, obviously, to do two things. One, we want to knock down enemies with the enhanced Poison Trap modifier. Going into a huge pack of elite mobs and knocking them all down immediately for a couple seconds gives you enough time to kill them all. So you pretty much take no damage. And Poison Trap is a very important skill for this build. It also applies poison, which unlocks more things like damage reduction against poisoned enemies or damage against poisoned enemies and stuff like that. So Poison Trap, very good. And then we have our two mobility skills here. We have Dash and Shadow Step. Normally what I would do is I would initiate the fight with a Shadow Step, stunning the elite, put down a Poison Trap, knock it down, and then just spam the hell out of Twisting Blades on it, and then, dash around for optimal Twisting Blades damage. But yeah, mobility skills, pretty self-explanatory. Use them to be mobile and to move around. Okay, and Dark Shroud. This is also kind of a mobility skill because it gives us a nice bit of movement speed because of the modifier that we get. But it also gives damage reduction, and damage reduction is something very important. Damage reduction is the best defensive stat in the game. Okay, because it prevents physical and elemental and poison, shadow, whatever damage. It reduces all damage. So damage reduction is super important, and having Dark Shroud will help a lot because obviously during the leveling process your gear will just suck. So this is nice to have for that damage reduction. And of course we have our Puncture, which is used to generate energy when we run out of energy, because we will. And of course to apply vulnerable. This is our easiest way to apply vulnerable during the leveling process. Okay, so there goes that. And obviously we're going to use emeralds in our weapons, and we're going to be mainly using daggers during the leveling process. You can use swords, but the thing about swords is swords implicit is critical strike damage. So, and we don't have any critical strike chance at all really while leveling. So I would prefer to use daggers. And you're going to use crossbows as your offhand because it gives vulnerable damage. So daggers and crossbows while leveling, and then in your armor you're going to socket in some topazes for some even more damage reduction while CC'd. And so let's move on to the skill tree. So here, luckily, this website is really good because it shows what level in order to get these skill points. Very useful. Again, this will be linked down below in the description, so I'm not going to explain each and every single step, but there is a reason why these things we use these skill points in these order, you know what I'm saying? But everything here super useful. Damage, defense, poison stuff, main skills, trap mastery, movement speed. It's got a lot of stuff. Damage reduction, energy generation. All these passive points help a lot towards this build, and yeah, you can see that if you just look into yourself. But I'm not going to go over it too much because again, these build guides have to be pretty fast. I got to make all classes, so yeah, don't worry. It'll be linked down below in the description. All right, so. And of course, for the Paragon board, I just posted the first page of the Paragon board for these starter builds for when you get past level 50. And here it is. Stock it in closer, give you more damage to your cutthroat skills, and Twisting Blades is your cutthroat skill. And of course, you take 10 reduced damage once you get the additional bonus for that. So that's the first Paragon point. And let's see what I put down for the notes. For the notes, I have the leveling guide, which is slightly outdated, I will admit, because I have a section in that leveling guide where I post the best nightmare dungeons, and I didn't know that the nightmare dungeons they're replacing nightmare dungeons until the patch notes. So I have to, but other than that, everything else in that leveling guide is perfectly fine. And the most important part of that leveling guide anyway is to get from levels 1 to 50, which I lay out very specifically to give you the easiest time and the most optimized route. So look at the leveling guide if you haven't already. And of course, there is the mid-game build once you unlock World Tier 3. and get level 50 and whatnot. And then the end game build, which I'll explain later. So let's go to the mid game build. So boom, for the mid game build, these are all your aspects. You know what I'm saying? These are the stats that you're looking for each piece of gear, right? Again, I'm not going to go over it. It's linked down below in the description. It's kind of a lot. But the main differences from the leveling build and the mid-game build is you're going to take out Dark Shroud for Shadow Imbuement to add more damage because, I mean, unless you're playing hardcore, it's all about damage, baby. And Shadow Imbuement helps a lot. It turns our damage into Shadow, which unlocks more of the more passive that we can use in our skill tree. And this is our skill tree again. Where is that passive that I'm talking about? It has something to do with shadow damage. Here it is. Consuming shadow. Each time you kill an enemy with shadow damage, you generate energy. Generating energy is extremely important, and this combined with shadow imbuement will help a lot when having energy problems with packs of mobs that aren't bosses. Because again, we'll never have trouble with bosses because of inner sight. So don't worry about that. It's more so the packs of mobs leading up to the boss, and the combination of consuming shadows and shadow imbuement is really nice. I highly suggest it. All right, boom, boom, boom. And then the Paragon board. Here's the Paragon board. It doesn't use all the points because I'm saving the rest of the point. You can do whatever you want. If you end up not finding Penitent Greaves, which are these, which activates your end game build. If you end up never finding them, then this is the build that I would recommend. This is the Paragon board that I recommend, and it has 23 remaining points. Go ahead and do with those points that you want. It's up to you. But yeah, this is what I would recommend. Early we pick up, closer again from our cutthroat skills. Then we go to the second board where we socket in combat for critical strike damage, and of course a little bit of energy cost reduction there. And of course the exploit weakness legendary node, super strong. Head over here, board number 3, cheap shot board, socket in diminish, boom, bonus to all rare nodes, boom, boom, crowd control, damage reduction, crazy. And of course pick up the legendary node here, 5% increased damage for each nearby enemy that is crowd controlled. And you're always crowd controlling because of poison trap. Anyway, so this is very nice. And then the fourth board is the Tricks of the Trade board, and we socket in turf for that damage reduction and increased damage against close targets. Very good. And then the final board for the mid-game build is, of course, exploits. If you want an easier way to apply exploit or to apply vulnerable, then you can put this earlier in the board. It's just most optimized in board number 5 because of the dexterity nodes surrounding it. Or rather the strength nodes surrounding it. So it's up to you here, but exploit is definitely one of the most strongest glyphs in the game for all classes because it applies the easiest way to apply vulnerable to the enemies, which is basically just hitting them, right? So exploit super strong. And let's see what I wrote down for the notes. So boom again. So instead of daggers, we're going to be switching to swords for our dual wields for our main weapons because swords give critical damage. Critical strike damage implicit, and by this time we can rack up some critical strike chance for that to matter. Okay, and this is the priority of the glyphs that I would level to level 15. Diminished turf exploit. The reason why I do this is because yeah, it's just priority. It's just what the strongest glyphs are at level 15. I do have a different list for 21, but that's in the late game. The late game build guide that I'll explain in a moment. And then I also added some elixirs that I would prioritize. Very good offensive, defensive elixirs here. And of course, if you're in a group, these are some good incenses to run with the build. And again, the fastest way to level up in the game is through Nightmare Dungeons, which I would actually. So there is another YouTuber. His name is Rax or Rants. And I get a lot of my information from him, and he has an updated list of the best Nightmare Dungeons to run. So I would look at him up. I will go ahead and link his shit down below as well. And of course, Hell Tides are the fastest way to gear up and farm Forgotten Souls. Hell Tides are the fastest way to gear up, straight up. All right, Hell Tides may not be the fastest way to level up, but they're not even bad XP, and the fastest way to gear up because of those mystery chests and those. If you're looking for a certain unique or whatever, you want to do Hell Tides as frequently as possible, and also you get your Forgotten Souls, which is the most important material in the game. Forgotten Souls is what lets you fully upgrade your equipment and enchant it so that you have perfect stats in your equipment. So Hell Tides, super important. Do them when you can. And of course, once you obtain the unique boots Penitent Greaves, which I believe leaves a trail of slow, and of course fix your energy problems to where you have enough resource generation to not have any problems anymore, then we're going to go and swap to this build, which is not much different. You just swap out the boots, right? You just swap out the boots here for the Penitent boots. Okay, we change out we take out puncture because we don't need energy generation from that anymore, and we already have a way to apply vulnerable for multiple sources, so we just add another imbuement, which is the cold imbuement, which obviously chills enemies per hits, which synergizes really well with Penitent Greaves, right? And of course, it adds a lucky hit where cold imbued skills have up to 40% chance to make enemies vulnerable, so even another chance to apply vulnerable, and it deals 20% damage to crowd controlled enemies, which is doubled against Frozen. Crazy. So cold imbuement super synergizes well with Penitent Greaves, a nice addition there. Same specialization, same gems though, and the same aspects pretty much, you know what I'm saying? Let's go to the skill tree. There is some differences in the skill tree. Again, I will not go over them, but yeah, we pretty much pick up cold imbuement and take out some other stuff that we don't need anymore, like fundamental puncture. We took that out and added it cold imbuement. So yeah, again, these will be linked down below in the description. Please do not forget that, because I am obviously and clearly missing a lot of information that I should be saying, but again, I don't have enough time because the season starts tomorrow, so I gotta make these videos. And here's the final Paragon board, all 225 points used, fully optimized for each of the glyphs, for their for the stats that they give, their bonuses, the additional stuff, whatever. Okay, it's all there. Let's see what I got in the notes. We're still going to be using swords and crossbows. And the glyph priority level for level 21 is changed a little bit from the level 15 one, so make sure you check that out. And of course, the same elixirs, and level up through Nightmare Dungeons and do Hell Tides. And that's pretty much it, okay? I'm sorry if this was kind of rushed. It is rushed, I'm not going to lie. But, again, it's the season starts tomorrow, and I got to make a starter build for all the classes to have you guys ready, to have me ready, my friends ready, and you guys. So I'm probably starting off with Rogue. It's just so easy. Bone Spear Necromancer is also another very easy build, but it's a lot tougher to level with than Twisting Blades Rogue. Twisting Blades Rogue is not only the best leveler, but it's probably top 3 builds in the game. So it's really hard not to play Twisting Blades. And on top of that, you don't need Penitent Greaves. You could fully beat the rest of the game with no legendaries and have this build. It's totally fine. The Penitent Greaves just make this build crazy. And by the way, Penitent Greaves is super easy to find. I found at least 10 of them when I was farming on my other characters before this season started. So yeah, there's the Rogue build. Link down below. The starter build, the mid-game build, and the end-game build. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you have any question about the links, they'll probably be down below in the description or in the notes section. Again, I'm sorry if I missed anything important, but I feel like I hit on all the important topics. And if you guys are concerned about Season 1, again, for Season 1, the Malignant thing are these caged hearts for jewelries, and I haven't tested these yet, so I just picked the ones that I saw the most useful. But I would most likely be changing these throughout my leveling process and throughout my end game when I actually get to test out these caged hearts. So feel free to use whatever you want. I just picked the ones that gave like resource generation because all builds needs resource generation, right? But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it, man. I ain't got shit else to say. I got to go make 4 other of these starter build guides. So you know what? Thanks for watching. I appreciate y'all. Make sure to you know what I'm saying, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff for the algorithm and whatnot. And remember to stay a while and listen. Peace out.